Today on the Writer's Desk, I'm talking to writer Jeff Gordon regarding his book, Foxy Lady.
Pleasure to be with you. You're delightful.
Well, we had
so perceptive.
We had our scones this morning.
Yes, we had our
And
scones.
our cappuccino. So,
and much enlightening conversation.
Yeah. There's a lot of autobiographies and biographies that are out there, which is the kind of reading that I like. I like nonfiction. I like to read about real people. How do we identify with her? How does the general public, what really pulls us into your story here?
Well,
is that too general of a question?
No, it isn't too general of a question, and I don't want to make myself talk like I'm bragging on myself, but I'll brag on Lynn. So that's easier to do. This is was a very honest, decent person who had a very compelling life. And I think it comes across in that manner in her authorized biography, thanks to her and to the many people whom she knew who offered their knowledge. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I was able to weave together the many elements of a life of somebody who really embraced the A to Z of acting in Hollywood, mm-hmm. And stage and television, pioneer in television and radio, who had an all-encompassing career, whose journey in life, like all of ours, was a tremendously mixed bag, who persevered, who
didn't give up easily.
Never gave up. No, she didn't give up. She didn't give up. Finally, whatever it was, I guess it was cumulative, whatever her demons, her relationships were, they were always sort of undermining her along the way. And they did she did succumb to that, but then came through it. So unlike many people who work in show business, she did not succumb. She was a survivor.
Absolutely. I mean, how can you not be and make 150 films?
Right.
You have to be that.
Exactly. And she finally did confront her personal demons and adversaries and came through. It's really an inspiring story of a woman who really was a pillar of the Hollywood community, whose personal problems undermined her professional foundation, but not her base foundation of whom she was as a person.
Which is hard because she never really had anybody that really loved her for what she was. So she had to find that solidness with just herself.
I think you're right. Lynn had a quality to her that she always had to please people, and she always had to be nice. And I think many readers might identify with that quality too.
Wait, isn't that the rule? That's the rule, right?
Well, I guess that's the rule. But the unfortunate thing is, with many people and certainly with Lynn, who have that quality, it makes it hard for them to open up to other people. I think toward the end of her life, when she gave up drinking, she herself became an alcoholic while she was married to Nathan Rickles, Beverly Hills' psychiatrist to the stars.
He made her drink, huh?
She became sort of isolated because he too championed her career. This was now in the 50s. She was a big television star. Then her film glory years were over, but now she was acting a lot in television.
But television had just come on the scene, so it was actually a very good thing.
It was a good thing, and she was at the outset. She did a lot of live TV. She had 2 television series, one live and one The Detective's Wife, and then did Boss Lady. But she was on all the shows, Perry Mason,
and
the FBI.
And most of them were live, weren't they?
Yeah, in the 50s, through the mid-50s, yes. She was on Climax. She was on Lux Video Theater, all of them. And then she did many shows in the 60s into the late 60s, like the FBI. She was on the Red Skelton show. She did it all.
So she's doing all of those married to this
guy
who's making her work in the office.
Yes.
Because he wants a liaison, because he was the therapist to the stars, right?
He was exactly. So she was a trophy wife.
And a liaison.
Between
him and the...
Right. So he didn't want her to act. He did want her to act. She had to give up her. It was crazy. Went back and forth.
Yeah, just basically used her for what he
Yeah,
wanted.
yeah. So another replication all the way from the mother through the husbands.
Right.
And from there, she had to work in his office, as you mentioned, as a psychiatric assistant, as a receptionist. She was having to contend with the patients calling in the middle of the night, pacifying them. And so, you know, she was going on national road tours, acting in films and television, and part of the year, and then part of the year isolated, just as you said, the aloneness, all alone in this huge Beverly Hills mansion. Started drinking privately in the late 50s. It was also throughout the 50s.
This is tea, by the way.
Yes, it's tea. I smell nothing medicinal, folks. Nothing. It was a very sober lady here. From what I know. You may know something else about her, but to me, she comes off very soberly.
We're talking about Lynn Barry.
Lynn Barry. Oh, yes, is that who we're talking about? She was also having to contend with Sid Luft, of whom she was embroiled in custody and battles throughout the 1950s.
With her 2 children that she had.
Well, she had one who survived, yes.
Sorry,
yes. One job, yeah. So she was contending with all of that and isolated in the home a lot of the time for long stretches each year. Started drinking privately. By the 60s, she'd become a daily drinker. By 1972, she divorced Mr. Rickles. There's a lot of drama there, which you'll read about. She became, I think, a little bit paranoid about his influence on her and her life. And she said that was the end of her 3rd marriage. She said, 3 strikes, you're out. I'm never going to marry again. She never did. She was on her own. And she had the national tour of the Gingerbread Lady twice. She did that. She was in Follies. We're now into the mid-70s. Went back to the Gingerbread Lady. But by that point, her drinking, and by her own admission, she had never let her drinking interfere with her career.
Now, let me remember, Gingerbread Lady is about an ex.
You've got it.
Who drinks.
Edie Mira.
Right?
Yeah.
And who's worried about losing her looks.
Right, exactly.
So that's mirroring her life.
Right. As a matter of fact, in the book, Lynn said, on one of her tours with it, she said, I was becoming like the character, getting looped every night.
Well, she was the character.
She was the character. And it's funny, if you see in reruns a number of her TV shows, especially of the 60s, where she was typecast as the society wife, she's often typecast as the alcoholic society wife with a mink stole and a vodka martini in her hands. And she was always getting notices for her television performances of alcoholic wives.
So that was like the early, what is that show about the wives?
Right, the Beverly Hills Wives.
What is that show? Gosh, everybody watches it.
The Real Housewives.
Housewives?
Yeah, of all of those, yes. Lynn was a Beverly Hills housewife. She couldn't stand Beverly Hills. She wound up in Beverly Hills, where she started out when she moved to California, became a Beverly Hills housewife. She hated doing lunches. She just stayed at home and drank.